Hello. I'm CCP Larrikin, and I'm a data scientist at CCP. Actually, before I get started, I just want to say a really big thanks to CCP Goodfella. For those of you who don't know, CCP Goodfella is one of the organizers of these events, and he's kind of the primary handler of the schedule. And he asked me to do this talk, and he came to me and he goes, "Hey, CCP Larrikin," because we call each other by CCP names in the office. "I've got you the best spot in the world." And I said, "Oh, when? This sounds great." And he goes, yeah, Sunday morning, straight after the party. It's like, yeah, you'll have the best crowd. You'll only have the hardcore data nerds, so. I work with these amazing people in the data and analytics team, and these are all of the data engineers, analysts, and producers. And for those of you wondering what those terms mean, a data engineer is someone who basically builds the infrastructure that the analysts use. So they take the data from TQ and they curate it, they enhance it, transform it, and put it into systems that then us analysts access, and we do our analysis. And the producers make sure we do our job. So this talk is going to have a couple of different parts, but I want to start by talking about cheaters and their effect on the economy. As I mentioned in the keynote, there has been a brand new team formed earlier this year, Team Law and Order. I'm not actually a member of Team Law and Order, so I haven't violated the secrecy of their membership. I just help them out occasionally. And this team, again, is focused on combating all forms of cheating. So you saw in the keynote, this year we've banned over 100 trillion ISK worth of assets and items from people who are cheating in EVE Online. No. But would you guys like to know what some of the assets we banned are? Yeah. That's good, because it's the next slide. So far, we have banned, just this year, 39 Titans, 156 supercarriers, almost 730 capitals, almost 4,000 skill extractors, over 13,000 large skill injectors, and 3.5 million plex. So we should work on that. So I want to talk a little bit about Sentinel. Sentinel is one of the tools that we use to detect people who are cheating in EVE Online in the actual game. The Tranquility server every day, it generates a whole bunch of log information. It generates this in a variety of different methods, raw log files, SQL databases, and what have you. And we have built a lot of hunters that actually go over all of this data. They go over it in real time and look at historical data trends for characters, and they look for detections. They look for people doing things that we don't think they should be doing. And they report these detections to the Sentinel system. And then the Sentinel system goes through all of these detections for each player, and it generates a rating of how likely we think they are of being a cheater. And your reports play into this rating. This is how the reporting system works. If you see someone you think is doing something bad, and this is if you think they're multiplexing, if you think they're botting, whatever, please report them. This will increase their rating, like our multiplexing users get thrown into this as well as people who we think are botting and other forms of cheating. Please report them. It will increase their rating, which means we get to them faster and we can verify what they're doing and get them out of our game. You can't use player reporting to grief. That's not how it works. If someone is not cheating, reporting them will multiply their rating of 0 by whatever, and their rating will still be 0. So it's not useful unless they're already doing something dodgy. As I said, we review these results, and then we banhammer them. But we're constantly adding new detection methods, new hunters to this system, and refining our methods our existing hunter systems. But we also realize that this is actually a forever war. We're not going to get rid of cheating in EVE Online. We can't get rid of all the botters. It's just not possible. There's always going to be some incentive for these guys and girls getting out there and cheating, and we understand that this is not a problem that we can fix and then ignore. This has our full attention, and we consider combating cheating in EVE Online a core strategic goal of CCPs. And in fact, it's even a new player issue. It drives new players out of the game as well. So that's how we kind of work on detecting cheating, but I want to talk a little bit about why botting is bad. And the first thing I want to cover is inflation. So this animation shows the gross NPC bounties from total players for every single player, and then the red line that you see up there, that's from people who we're pretty sure, we're very confident are cheating, but we haven't got around to banning yet. You can quite clearly see the Sino changes, the red line there, and you can see sort of the proportion of the economy that is coming from people who we're pretty sure are cheating. In fact, it's around about 16% of the ISK that are just coming from NPC kills are coming from people we think are cheating. So if we just step back for a moment and we pretend that the only way of getting ISK is killing NPCs, which obviously it isn't, but let's pretend that. If you go and spend your hard-earned time and you kill a bunch of NPCs and you earn 100 million ISK, those cheaters are effectively devaluing that ISK by 16%. You would get the spending power of only about 84 million ISK. Now, this isn't a perfect analogy because there are other ways of getting ISK in EVE Online, and also people who are cheating are not just killing NPCs, they're also mining and getting LP and everything else. Interestingly, during Blackout, we saw the proportion of ISK coming from cheaters drop to around about 5%. Now, the second big reason that we think we want to get rid of cheaters in our game is around fairness and income inequality. And income inequality actually extends beyond the war against botters and cheaters in our game. But let's talk about fairness really quickly. The same reason that we banned multiplexing in EVE Online is why we're banning botting. We don't think you need to know how to set up a botting program or purchase a botting program or use ISBoxer to play our game. We want our game to be accessible to everyone, and that's why it's against the EULA. But we can explore the income inequality side of this a little bit by looking at the effect that Blackout had. We learned so much from Blackout. So this particular animation is looking at the total time that suspected cheaters are spending in EVE Online. And we can see there's quite a big decrease there, obviously, over the Blackout period. But it doesn't have as big a decrease as you saw previously when we look at the gross ISK coming from NPC kills. So obviously a lot of cheaters are not spending their time killing NPCs, or they're doing it less efficiently during the Blackout period, but we know that some of them are mining and getting LP and what have you. This particular animation shows the mean daily character bounties. Now, in this data set, we've restricted it to just looking at Sovereignty nullsec, and we're looking at any character that killed an NPC in that day, and then looking just at the mean for people who we think aren't cheating versus people who we think are cheating. So as you can see, the red line there is showing cheaters again, and we can see that on average, those players are making somewhere around the 350 odd million ISK per day, while regular players are only making around 120 million ISK per day, on average. The red line there is also where the Sino changes came in. And this big dip here is actually when Skills for Kills came into the game. What that is a whole bunch of players are getting out there and killing NPCs, but they're only killing 1 or 2, so the average is getting dragged way down. And you can even see that starting up around October 19 when Skills for Kills came back in as well. Sorry, 2019 October, not October 19. But this doesn't tell the full story. We can see that the mean is much lower for players, and we can also see there's quite a big drop in the player section there when we introduce the Sino changes. So why don't we go and have a look at the number of NPCs killed by various ship types. So we're just using sort of meta groups here. The white line there is obviously the total number of NPCs killed. The red line is the number of NPCs killed by subcapital ships. The yellowy goldy line is supercapitals, and the orangey line is just capitals. So to start with, again, you can see the effect of the Sino change when most coalitions with supercaps said, hey, you can't rat for supercaps for a couple of days, and then they fired back up. But what you can also see is if you look at the change, the average change pre-blackout and during blackout with subcapitals, it's around about 35%. So subcapital NPCs decreased by 35%. Meanwhile, supercapital kills only decreased by 25%. Like supercap pilots were just less affected by blackout. This is actually a bigger effect than this particular graph shows, because this is also showing NPC kills across all of New Eden. It's not just looking at sovereignty nullsec kills. So presumably blackout wouldn't have affected you for your mission running in a high sec. Well, at least I hope not. Maybe we should explore this income inequality issue just a little bit more. So we're going to actually do that by going back and looking at botters. This particular graph is kind of a weird one, and I'm going to need to explain it a little bit. But what it is it's looking at NPCs killed in sovereignty nullsec. It's looking at the NPCs that were killed by people we suspect are cheating. And it's looking at how much each one of those characters made per day. And then it's ranking them. It's looking at the entire period from quarter to all the way to now, and it's ranking them. So it'll say player 1 killed 10 million's worth of NPCs, player 2 killed 1 million's worth of NPCs, and it'll rank them all the way down. And then it splits them up into even deciles, or even groups, 10 different groups that all have the same number of NPCs. And then it gets the average amount that one of those players would have made in the game. Which is all very interesting. You're saying CCP Larrikin, but what does this mean to anyone? Well, what you see there is a very even distribution. So the bottom group there, the bottom 10%, the least successful cheaters, basically, are making around about the 30 million a day on average, while the second top, is making about 671 million, and the top is making almost 1 billion ISK on average per day. But this is a nice even distribution, and you would expect that, because these people aren't ratting for the same amount of time. Some are ratting for less, some are ratting for more. But what's more interesting is when you compare this same distribution with the distribution of people we don't think are cheating. So this does the same thing. It's looking at the same group of NPCs being killed in sovereignty nullsec. We filter out everyone that killed less than 10 million ISK worth of NPCs. We don't care about those guys. They're either not engaging, or they got interrupted, or they're actually mining, or they're just killing the odd NPC. But what you do see here is we don't have a nice linear distribution. These are regular players like you and me. Instead, we see an exponential increase. The people who are most successful at ratting, and we don't think are cheating, are making much, much, much more than the bottom 10%. In fact, the bottom 10% on average are only making about 7.6 million. The top 10% are making 650 million ISK on average per day. This particular animation is looking at that same data set, but a historical view. And instead of breaking it up into 10 deciles, which would make the graph a little bit busy, we're just breaking it up into 4 quartiles. So the yellow is the top quartile, the most successful people who are PvEing, killing NPCs. The dark green is the bottom 25%. And you can see the effect that blackout has on them. Where you can see the effect the Sino changes. So these most successful people, unsurprising to anyone, are probably flying supercapitals or capitals. That's not a particularly surprising issue. But what confirmed our earlier findings is exactly what the change was when we look at the decrease in the amount of average ISK these people are making. If we look at the top 25%, the most successful PvPers out there, blackout only on average affected them by minus 12%. 12.6%. And this includes the period when the Sino changes came in, before the capital NPC rating sort of spiked back up. But we look at those least successful 3 quartiles, and it's anywhere from minus 36 to minus 43%. It's pretty clear that blackout didn't affect everyone evenly. Now, I'm not a designer in EVE Online, and I know this is a really difficult task, and my job, or my goal here today isn't to depress you by telling you about income inequality in EVE Online. My job is to inform you. This is a serious issue that we need to address, and we need to start a conversation with you, the players, about this. This is a new player issue. People who start playing the game need to be able to compete with existing players. Existing players need to be able to compete with the mega wealthy or the people that hold all the power as well. We need creative destruction in our universe if it's going to be fun. But I'm going to move on from that to something perhaps a little bit more fun now. I'm going to leave the economic side behind. And instead, what I want to look at is the Americas, you guys mostly. So the animation that's playing right now is showing players, not users. So we're not looking at user accounts or characters, we're looking at players. So if one person has 300 accounts, another person has one, they both just count as one. And we're looking at where they self-reported from. So if you go into your account settings and you say that I am from Martinique, for example, then this will show you, you'll show up on this graph as a player. And it also shows when your first account started. So you can see people from Guyana, we had some people spiking up in 2006 and moving on. And for those of you who are going to attack me afterwards about the territorial definitions I've used here, this is directly from Wikipedia. So if you don't like the particular territorial definitions, you should have edited Wikipedia sooner. I think it's pretty clear. You can see where the Alpha and Omega launch happened in 2016 too. There was just a lot of media attention, I think. Can we check the sound? There totally should have been an eagle screech just then. I had a note in my notes to pause for the USA chant, but I'm going to give you guys a pass. It was just after the party last night. So. But actually, I want to give a big shout out to Saint Pierre and Miquelon. This isn't their official flag. They're actually an overseas French territory. So their official flag is the French flag. But this is their unofficial flag. And I don't know about you guys, but that is the coolest flag I've ever seen. It has pirate ships and lions on it. All right. Up your game, USA. All right, so the next one. Who wants to see which character who claims they are in the Americas has the most kill mails? That's, again, very lucky. So just a little bit of clarification here. This is looking at any kill mail you appeared on as an attacker. Again, it's self-reported characters in the Americas, and it excludes any newbie ship kills or pod kills as well. Yeah, music. Congratulations, Mark. You are number one. 40,000 kill males. Most killed ship is almost 2,400 Drakes. Followed by 2,100 Hurricanes, 36 Titans. Sorry? Yeah. 96 supercarriers and almost 800 capitals. His favorite ship is a Loki with 6,000 kills in a Loki, followed by a Damnation with over 3,000, which doesn't surprise me. He's an incredibly talented FC. 1,900 kills in a Thanatos, which I actually want to find out what he did there, but anyway, and 1,800 kills in a Tempest. All right, so that's enough about particularly Americans. Let's look at the wider universe. Who wants to see kills by alliance? So again, follows the same rules. This is unique kill males for someone on that alliance, so multiple alliances might share in a single kill male, and it's ignoring pods and newbie ships. Feel free to cheer for your alliance, guys. Congratulations, Goonswarm. I do have two things to point out about this too. Test, PL, and NC dot. If you combine RVB as a single alliance, which I think they kind of should be, that actually drops you all down one more spot. And Test pipped PL out at like the last day or two by about 500 kills as well. So Goonswarm, over 1.2 million kills. Most kill thing, a mobile tractor unit, followed by Sabres. 13,000 capitals, 455 Titans, supercarriers, and 284 Titans. Test with 780,000 kills. Again, most kill item is a Sabre, only 17,000 mobile tractor units. Those are rookie numbers, guys. 10,000 capitals, 330 supercarriers, and 142 Titans. And Pandemic Legion, most killed 19,000 Drakes, followed by 19,000 Hurricanes, and 15,000 capitals, and almost 1,000 supers, and 300 Titans. Oh, don't say that. That's definitely not true. Who wants to see which country in the world has the most super capitals? So this is only looking at countries that have at least 100, and it's both Titans and supercarriers combined. And sorry, there's no music for this one. This particular one is volume manufactured by region. So we're stepping away from the countries for this graph, but looking at which region manufactured the most M3 in volume. Which I will admit, some of our items have incredibly weird volumes, but let's move past that. It's also only looking from 2016 onwards. Probably building mobile tractor units. Oh, wow, the music starts now. All right. And this one is showing total volume mined by country. All right, that's the formal part of the presentation. We're actually going to do some questions now. If you have any questions, if you just line up in the middle as a microphone. While people think about questions, I actually just want to do a couple of quick thank yous. The first one is thank you to you guys for generating all this awesome data for me to troll through. The next one is thank you to the data engineering team for making the data easier for me to troll through. And also my fellow analysts for the past week or so doing some of these longer queries, looking at kills and whatnot, slowed the databases down for them so they couldn't do their work as well. And lastly, thanks to CCP Goodfella for scheduling such a good time slot. Shoot.
Do you think that the 100% drop rate for the Halloween event will be able to tease out and identify RMT kills? You know, because they send out, Plex and injectors in Jita and a Corvette, and they kill it until it's paid. So this will affect that, and that might create patterns that you can examine.
I'm sure it'll have some effect. I'm sure we'll be able to use that to maybe hunt them down, as you suggested. But we already have some pretty good methodologies around that that we're exploring, and this will hopefully help us refine them. It wasn't the reason for the idea, though.
No, I didn't think it was, but I think it could be useful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Ash Tarathy. First of all, thank you for this presentation. I love watching the numbers, and I love what you do. My question is, what would you say is the most interesting or revolutionary or revelatory discovery that you found from the chaos era? The thing that you're most happy that you did it?
It was probably actually the exploration we did on income inequality. Like, this is something we've known that's existed, but one of the hypotheses that around the blackout was that it might give a little bit more, might even the playing field a little bit, and it actually didn't. It made everything worse. please don't take that out of context. It made things worse for the people who were already struggling. So yeah, that was probably one of the biggest ones. And also that was only talking about income inequality for a very small part of the game, or not the entire economy. I was only looking at sovereignty NPC kills. When you start looking at mining, when you start looking at mission running, this problem covers those areas as well. And it also misses out a bunch of areas too. The people who are making the most money, they don't kill NPCs, right? They value add, and it actually skews the share of income even further towards a very small group of very talented people.
Thank you. Awesome.
Hi, in-game name Moren, WR3N. At the beginning, you talked about confiscations and all the materials being confiscated, and one of the things you listed was Plex.
Yes.
And so that represents actual real money that was put into the game, I assume by legal players, and then traded to illegal players, and then it gets confiscated for whatever reason. So that represents a huge investment that got sunk out of the game and now affects the Plex market greatly. Is there any way you guys filter that back into the game somehow?
We have no plans to do so at the moment. We have in the past. So when Dr. Ao was at CCP, this was, I'm going to say like 2012, he did an injection of Plex into the market to bring the price down. We prefer not to do that at the moment. We prefer to keep the market fairly...
But people put that money in to buy Plex, to put it on the market, to make the Plex numbers greater so that there's a greater availability for those players that don't want to pay to play. They want to play to buy Plex to play. And so by sinking, even though they ended up in the wrong hands, they were purchased legally.
Yeah.
So they should be a part of, they should remain a part of the game.
Presumably those people who purchased them then went and sold them, and these botters bought them. They were, they transacted them.
Right.
But your point has some validity, and currently I don't think we have any plans to do anything with that.
All right.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was great. I'm wondering what sort of qualitative data you use in conjunction with the quantitative. For instance, things like, I don't know, taking the temperature of different social platforms, things like that, although you should probably avoid Reddit altogether. and sort of how that affects the results that you see.
Oh, yeah. CCP Ghost will actually be talking about some of that in, I think, the very next presentation in here. So
Super.
Wait like 20 minutes.
All right.
Hi, Robert Smith, Center for Advanced Studies. I really appreciate your income inequality analysis, which is a big problem for new players in particular. And I was wondering if you've done any analysis based on hours undocked, for example, because you could expect that people that are making a lot of money really fast would be worse than people that put in a lot of time to make their
We have, and we need to do more. It's also difficult to quantify why someone is docked or undocked. So it's not impossible, but it's quite difficult to automate looking at someone who undocks for a little while, kills some NPCs, and then suddenly docked up. Like, why did they dock up? Did they dock up because a hostile came into local, or did they dock up because their kid's crying? But we do look at basically income per hour of activity, and that is one of the areas that we're looking at, but we're not quite ready to release some of those numbers as well.
This is Dagon Crow from Horde Armada. Do you track players who multi-box as one unit? Is there any way to do that, or are you just tracking each account individually?
Internally, we look at, so when I say player, I'm talking about you as an individual. I'm not talking about your account or like a specific account. And that's what, if you think back to the location animation, that was specifically looking at people, and not accounts. Yeah.
And is that just the self-reported data? Like if someone signed up with a different name on each account, then you would track them separately?
I can't tell you exactly how we do this, but we have a bunch of mechanisms, and I'll also say that we know that classification for player isn't 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. There's certainly inaccuracies here, like especially when you guys account share. But we recognize that happens, and we try and account for that.
Hi, Hijinks McStager in game. I have a follow-on question to the earlier one on the confiscated goods being pulled from the game. To maybe encourage the bot reporting, could maybe 1 or 2% of that be filtered back to the person who reported them?
That's a pretty interesting idea. I'll talk to the gentleman in charge of the security team.
Thank you.
Sorry? Yeah, maybe that's a bad incentive. I'll have a chat to him. It's not up to me to figure out.
Hey, this is Ash again. So I run public invasion fleets that went on during the blackout. One of the things I noticed was that I had a lot of people that were normal nullsec ratters and other stuff like that were spending time playing in invasions and with emerging conduits and with all of that kind of new content. Did you track the mobility of ISK generation as people compensated for things like blackout?
Yes. We also tracked where people spent the majority of their time, and we saw that during blackout, approximately 1,000 people sort of moved from nullsec, spending most of their time in nullsec, to spending most of their time in highsec.
How did that do percentage-wise?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
But we also saw, like, pretty clearly that a lot of botters moved their operations from nullsec to highsec, where it was just safer. And that reflects, like, they kind of haven't adjusted and moved back as fast yet. Some are, but it's sort of been slow. Anyway, guys, look, thank you very much for your time. If you want to hear from CCP Ghost, he's straight up next, and he'll talk about I'm pretty sure he's talking about a bunch of surveys and what have you, and the friendship machine. And if you want to come to the round table, there's 2 this afternoon. I think the first one's at 2, and then 3, but you should check the schedule, because clearly I don't know. Thanks, guys.